Mr. President, Madam President.
Senator from Minnesota.
Madam President, as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Rules Committee, okay, oh, right. Madam President.
Senator from Minnesota.
We got ahead of ourselves here, so I'm going to begin. Madam President, I come to the floor today to urge the Senate to address the threat the coronavirus poses to our elections and to take immediate action to pass my legislation to ensure voters do not have to choose between their right to vote and their own health. Today is Election Day, Madam President, in Kentucky and in New York and in Virginia. There are runoff elections in North Carolina and in Mississippi as well. As we speak, voters in these states are experiencing what it is to vote in the middle of a global pandemic. If the past few months are any indication, for many, casting a ballot today will not be safe, and it will not be easy. The coronavirus has caused unprecedented disruptions in the daily lives of Americans. In order to protect voters and poll workers, this pandemic has forced us to make changes to how we vote. 16 states postponed their presidential primaries or transitioned their primaries to almost entirely voting by mail. We've seen Democratic and Republican governors across the country issue waivers allowing all voters to cast their ballots by mail during the pandemic. That includes in states like New Hampshire, Republican governor, in states like Ohio, where they have a Republican governor that have focused on vote by mail, in states by Maryland, where the governor has been devoted to vote by mail, and including in states like Missouri. While it is important that individual states are taking action to protect voters during this pandemic, we must remember that in the end, this is a national pandemic. It's not just a pandemic in Vermont or in Utah. It is national. It is the responsibility of this nation, of this nation's government, of this Congress, to ensure that states have the funds they need to make our elections more resilient and to make sure that voters don't have to risk their health to cast their ballots. When we have a national threat, whether it be international conflict, we do not expect an individual state to be able to respond. In World War II, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, we didn't just say, oh, Hawaii, you go deal with that yourself. We in this Congress has acknowledged that this pandemic has national consequences in how we responded with the CARES Act, with how the House has responded with the HEROES Act that I hope we consider very soon in this Congress, with the fact that even when it comes to voting, that this Congress, with bipartisan support, this U.S. Senate, voted to give over $400 million originally to the states. There were some issues with how that money was given out that we are trying to fix. But nevertheless, it was a down payment on the fact that even at the beginning of the pandemic, based on what we'd seen in Wisconsin, we anticipated that there were going to be problems for voting, that there was going to be a massive change in how our elections are held. You have states like, say, New York State, where only 5% of people have voted by mail in the past few federal elections. States like my own state, despite having the highest voter turnout in the country, Minnesota, only 25% of people on average voted by mail. And now you're seeing switchovers to 50, 60% of the people in every single state in the nation asking to vote from home. Or, in the alternative, asking for safe voting places by keeping voting places open longer for early voting, by training poll workers so we do not depend on our senior citizens to be staffing the polling locations when they are the most vulnerable to the coronavirus. This is common sense. This is why you see Republican governors and Republican Secretary of States joining Democratic governors and Democratic Secretary of States all across the nation to ask for help from Washington. Today in Kentucky, New York, and Virginia, election officials are putting more than $36 million of federal funding to good use. Funding to recruit and train new poll workers, to provide those workers with protective equipment and sanitizing supplies, funding to pay for postage for mail-in ballots, purchase additional equipment, and to cover the costs of moving poll locations to accommodate more people. I am proud to have fought to secure that funding, and I appreciate Senator Blunt, my colleague, who I know is going to be here shortly, who is the chair of the Rules Committee, for assisting in making sure that funding was designated, as well as Senator Shelby and Senator Leahy and Senator Coons and so many others that have worked on this important issue. It's a good first step, but let us remember, this is simply still the primaries in a few states. If you talk to election officials across the country, they will tell you that it wasn't enough, that they desperately need more resources for the general election when so many more people vote. Support from the federal government is vital because we have seen states struggle when it comes to administering elections during the pandemic. We also know it is not like they have a reservoir of funding right now to deal with, which is one of the reasons that we want to pass the HEROES Act. So many of our states and local governments are struggling right now, and that's why it's so important to designate funding as we move forward, and I hope we will soon, to discuss the HEROES Act to be able to help pay for elections. Support from the federal government is vital because we have seen states struggle when it comes to administering elections. With fewer than 6 months left before the general election, Congress must act now to ensure that states have the resources and funding that they need. A lot of times you hear, well, it's only 6 months, so why would we do funding now? Well, look at the fact that we were able to at least assure the states that the money was going to be out there for them a few months ago for the primaries, that they were able to either spend their own money because they knew that money was coming or spend designated money. That's how this works. We're no longer in a normal situation. We're in a situation where states are having to rearrange how they do elections all over the country to make it safe and to allow people to vote from home. We've seen the chaos and disenfranchisement that will happen if we don't act soon. The Wisconsin primary will forever be etched in the memory of our nation. Voters stood for hours in the cold and rain, wearing garbage bags and homemade masks just to be able to exercise their right to vote. In Milwaukee, there were just 5 polling locations open instead of the usual 180. Almost 600,000 people live in Milwaukee, including 2/3 of that state's African-American population. The closure of so many polling places made it even harder for people without easy access to transportation to get to a polling location, and it caused unnecessary crowding with lines to vote wrapping around blocks. As a result, voters were disenfranchised, and some even contracted the coronavirus. According to local health officials, nearly 70 people in Wisconsin who either voted in person or served as poll workers contracted the virus as a result of that election. And then earlier this month in Georgia, thousands of people went to the polls and were also met with long lines and confusion. Reports from Atlanta indicate that voters faced malfunctioning machines, and some voters never received the mail-in ballots they requested. So instead of being able to safely vote from home, many were forced to show up in person on Election Day. I was particularly struck by the words of Anita Hurd, an 80-year-old woman from Atlanta who actually marched with Dr. King. And she was the first person in line at her polling location at 6 a.m. waiting to vote this year. Anita called the long lines and waits unfair and ridiculous. She is right. In Fulton County, one voter, a mom, sat on a lawn chair holding her infant son in one hand and an umbrella in the other. She waited more than 3 hours to vote. She said she wasn't leaving because it was important to her and to her son that one day she would be able to tell him that she waited to vote for him. In America, people should not have to wonder if voting machines will be operational or if they are going to be able to receive their ballot on time to make it count. Jose Andres, the remarkable chef who helps feed people in areas struck by natural disasters, announced a plan to provide food, water, and resources to help people standing hours in line on Election Day. He is doing his part to address this issue, as are so many people across this country, including, as I mentioned, Democrat and Republican secretaries of state and governors. And I appreciate Senator Blunt, the chairman of the Rules Committee, is here. And as I said, he worked to help us get that initial funding. Experts have warned that today in Kentucky we may see a repeat of the chaos that we have seen in early primaries. Reports indicate that fewer than 200 polling places are open in the entire state, down from the 3,700 in a typical election year. We are glad that Kentucky has voted by mail. A number of people have voted from home, but I think we also know, just based on what we've seen in these other states, and this is just based on facts, not on partisanship, it's based on facts. We know that 200 polling locations in a state of that size will not be enough. Not in the primary, but it certainly won't be enough in a general election. In order to protect the right to vote, we have to learn from states who are taking steps to make voting safe and easy. Primary turnout this year has broken records in many states, especially when it comes to voting by mail. States like Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, New Mexico, Idaho, West Virginia, and North Dakota have all held successful elections this year by relying heavily on voting by mail. Again, that's a primary, with some of these states have less voters, not all of them, because they're smaller population states, and many of them were not dealing with a general election. In West Virginia, mail-in ballots increased from just 25,000 in 2018 to over 200,000 this year. In Pennsylvania, the number of mail ballots cast increased from 80,000 in 2018 to over 1.5 million this year. Voters and election officials across the country, in red states and blue states, are turning to casting a ballot from home. In addition to the 5 states that already hold their elections mostly by mail, Utah, Oregon, Colorado, Hawaii, and Washington, and I note that those states are not all blue states, including particularly Utah, Colorado, which is known as a purple state, 3 states, California, Nevada, New Jersey, and also District of Columbia, have decided to send all voters absentee ballots for elections this year, and 13 states have decided to send all voters absentee ballot applications. These decisions weren't made, as I note, on a partisan basis. Both Republican and Democratic officials in states have decided to implement these policies to protect their voters. And I will also note that none of the 5 states that held their elections primarily by mail this year have had major voter fraud scandals since transitioning to vote by mail. As the New York Times editorial board notes, states that use vote by mail have encountered essentially zero fraud. Oregon, the pioneer in this area, has sent out more than 100 million mail-in ballots since 2000 and has documented only about a dozen cases of proven fraud. Rounded to the 7th decimal point, that's 0.0000001% of all votes cast. We have all seen the president's tweets on this. We know these tweets are meant to hurt our democracy, and people shouldn't fall for it, because I just gave you the facts. 0.0000001% of all votes cast in the states that's been using this forever, involving any fraud. We must set the record straight, and I appreciate that Senator Romney recently noted that nearly everyone in what he called his very Republican state of Utah votes by mail, and in his words, it works very, very well. Now is the time to reject efforts to undermine our political system, and mostly undermining people's attempts to exercise their fundamental right to vote safely. What are you going to tell a veteran who has a pre-existing condition, like the guy who wrote me who served in Vietnam, that said, what is he supposed to do now? We have to allow them to vote from home. In the midst of this pandemic, we need to make sure no voter has to choose between their health and exercising their right to vote. That's why I'm urging my colleagues to support my legislation with Senator Ron Wyden, which is co-sponsored by 35 other senators, the Natural Disaster and Emergency Ballot Act, to help state election officials meet this pandemic head-on. Our legislation doesn't require us to reinvent how we vote. Instead, our bill would overcome the challenges posed by the coronavirus by expanding existing election practices like voting by mail and early voting. It starts with guaranteeing every American the option to vote by mail. 16 states require voters to provide an excuse if they want to cast a ballot by mail. But during the pandemic, 13 of these states are allowing all voters to cast a ballot by mail without needing to provide an excuse. Democratic and Republican governors and secretaries of state, that is progress. So I would say, well, we still have 3 states that are still denying all voters the option to vote by mail, forcing them to choose between their health and their constitutional right and go through these hoops to do it. So why not put a standard in place on the federal level? That's what our bill does. Our legislation would also get help to the states, and again, my friend Senator Blunt is here. I appreciate, while he hasn't put a dollar amount on it, but his interest in looking at funding for this beyond this bill, I think, is very helpful. Our bill called for $3.6 billion, which is what is in the HEROES Act, funding to safely administer elections. And it would knock down barriers, this bill, to safely vote, like the requirement to have your ballot signed by a witness or a notary. These are requirements that disproportionately hurt minority voters, people without as much money. There's one story of someone sitting in a hospital room trying to get someone to notarize a ballot, a primary ballot, through a glass window. Someone who has coronavirus, we're really going to require them to do that? Are we really going to do that? That's what you have to ask yourself, colleagues. The bottom line is that it shouldn't be this hard to vote. I'm proud that this bill has been endorsed by more than a dozen organizations, including the group founded by former First Lady Michelle Obama, including Voto Latino, including the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, the National Urban League, Common Cause, the Leadership Conference for Civil and Human Rights. As I noted, the CARES Act included funding. It didn't include the standards that I think are necessary, but included the funding. And that's just the beginning. That was a down payment negotiating in the middle of the night. I know that because I was talking to my colleagues back then. This is the real deal, to be able to help states in the general election. This money was included in the HEROES Act. Public health experts have warned over and over again of the possibility of a new wave of this virus in the fall. We have to be ready. States are having this happen anyway, and we should make sure that they have the funding to do it. I know we're going to be discussing the National Defense Authorization Act in the next few weeks at some point. And I think about that. Our defense is important, but remember, this is about the defense of our democracy. The simple idea that this was a democracy, that it's not a dictatorship, that people should be able to go out there and exercise their right to vote no matter how they're going to vote, no matter what party they're going to vote for. And this is the moment, and because of this pandemic, we need to do it. Last thing I'll mention, 3 polls released in the last couple of months show an overwhelming majority of voters, over 80%, favor measures to make voting safe and easy. One of the polls, conducted in 6 battleground states, showed that 74% of voters wanted their senators to support legislation in Congress to implement voting reforms, including a majority of Republican voters. Think about that. Voters across party lines want Congress to pass legislation that would guarantee the right to vote by mail and provide funding to states and make sure it's safe to vote. That's what this is about. And again, I thank my colleague, Senator Blunt, for all he has done and the fact that he was able to work with us when we did negotiate the CARES Act to make sure there was some funding included, as well as I mentioned Senator Shelby, Senator Coons, Senator Leahy, and others. But now is the time to prepare for what we have ahead, and that is making sure everyone can vote safely. Mr. President, as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Rules Committee be discharged from further consideration of S-4033, the Natural Disaster and Emergency Ballot Act of 2020, and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I further that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.